All right, we have a very special guest on the show today. He is a legend. He is someone who has a remarkable, amazing story of being in the mob and then leaving the mob and finding faith and so many other different things that have happened. Michael Franzese, welcome to the show. How are you, sir?
I'm good. Nice to be here.
All right. So we have so many things that we need to talk about. But the first thing that I want to get to is something that has recently come out that you've been addressing that is obviously pretty topical because of the time in which we're living in right now. The Mueller investigation questioned you, huh?
Well, representatives from the Justice Department did question me. Yes, during that whole time with Trump.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, yeah. I mean, what it came down to back in the early '80s, both myself and my partner in the gasoline business, who happened to be Russian. He was a Russian immigrant. We bought condos over at Trump Towers, and we paid cash for them at the time. And what they were trying to do was establish a connection because my partner had a relative that was part of the KGB in Russia. And I think they were trying, the way they were questioning me, they were trying to establish a connection between my partner and Trump and the KGB, or to see if there was any further involvement. I mean, it was nonsense. And then they asked about, why did you pay in cash? I said, well, we had a lot of cash at that time. And, I said, we didn't hand it directly to Trump, but what's wrong with cash? It's good money. It's the U.S. Mint that made it. What's the problem? So, it went away. I mean, it didn't go anywhere, but they tried to establish a connection, I think, between my Russian partner, his associates back in Russia, and Donald Trump.
And that was real interesting to me when I heard about that, because that seems like a reach, isn't it?
Well, it was a reach, I mean, I even told them, I said, please don't tell me you're trying to establish something from, almost 40 years ago and trying to say it has any, it's pertinent in any way to what's going on today. And they were hush up on that. They didn't respond to me on it. And they said, look, just answer the questions. I said, look, you want to bring me in front of I'll gladly come in, no problem. I said, but I don't think you're going to like what I have to say, and that was the end of it. I mean, it was a short meeting. They tried to establish that. I told them, you guys are way off base. Don't even go there. And I said, I had a lot of cash at that time. You know what I was involved with. I went to jail for it. So don't worry about that. And then that was that. It ended fairly quick.
We're talking with Michael Franzese, and on that topic, you have a book called Mafia Democracy: What Happens When the Government Turns Thug. Can you talk a little bit about that book?
Well, yeah, actually, the book's not out yet. It's going to be
not out yet. Okay.
No, it'll be released over the summer. We're just finishing it up. And, basically, it's sad to say, but I have certainly noticed over the past several years that our government is operating in many, many ways like the mob operated. They have a very Machiavellian ideology at this point in time. And, I'll tell you what happened. I was commissioned to write this book 6 years ago. And I started writing the book, and the book is so factual. I mean, this is not a gimmick. It's so factual. I'm going to point out exactly how the government is operating like the mob. And I'm going to show it in a lot of different ways. And I told my publisher at the time, I said, what do I need this for? Nobody's bothering me now. I don't need the government to get mad at me. I'm not going to write the book. And they gave me an advance. I gave them back the advance. And I said, I'm not going to write the book. So I sat on it. And, in this past year, I felt compelled. I said, you know what? I have a bit of a platform. I don't like what's going on in our government. I think that, our rights are being infringed upon in a big way. I think we put people in office that really, benefit themselves more than they do the people that put them there. And I don't like the way this is going. And I just want to point it out to people. It's bipartisan. It's not Republican, Democrat. I don't take anybody's side. I'm just showing them the operation of the government, the system is so mob-like, and it's a dangerous way. You know how many times people have said to me, the mob would do a better job operating the country than the government? I said, you don't want the mob running the United States of America. That's not the way it's supposed to go. But unfortunately, they're very mob-like. And so that's what the book's going to be about.
Mm-hmm. Are you still a little concerned about the reaction from, government figures and stuff when the book comes out?
Well, listen, I know how these people are, they're not people to be messed with, but I'm not doing anything wrong. I have no, my skeletons are long gone. I've been doing the right thing for a long time now. So they might get upset with me. They might knock me off of Twitter or whatever else they're going to do with social media. They silence you. I mean, I don't know. But I think, like I said, I think I have an obligation to at least put it out there and let people decide for themselves. I mean, I'm not suggesting that, we overthrow the government or anything like that. I'm just pointing out what's going on. And the way we, the authority that we have is holding these people accountable. We send them to Washington. We send them to our state governments. They don't do the job. Throw them the heck out. That's all I'm saying. Hold in the right people.
All right. We're talking with Michael Franzese. And Dante, I know you have a question. Go ahead, sir.
Absolutely. So, Mr. Franzese, this is about the gas business and also with the Russians. Whose idea was the gas business or the gas scam in the first place? And then I know your partner was a Russian immigrant. So how often would you guys, people who were made or mafia guys, work with outside crews or outside help?
Okay. Well, it's two questions, so I'll answer them in order. There was a guy out in Long Island. I grew up in Brooklyn, then moved out to Long Island. That was kind of my base of operations. And there was a guy out in Suffolk County, Long Island, and he had a small gasoline operation. He had a small company. And some guys from another mob family were shaking him down. They were extorting him, trying to get involved in his business. So he ran to me for help. And basically he said to me, Michael, look, he said, with your help, he said, I have a way, I believe, I have a germ of an idea where we can defraud the government at a tax on every gallon of gasoline. Well, I didn't like the government back then. So I said, okay, I'm going to get involved. So I got rid of the guys that were bothering him. I made them back off and we went into business together. And basically, I had put this guy, Vinny, he was actually my butcher. And I put him with this guy, Larry. Larry was the guy that came to me. And I said, look, Larry's got this idea. I want you to, I don't know the guy too well. Stay with him for a while. Let's see what he's really got going on. Well, 2 weeks later, Vinny comes to my house and he used to come on every Saturday. He used to bring me meat. He was my butcher, right? So this Saturday, he knocks on the door and he's got a box on his shoulder. And I said to him, hey, what do I having a party here? What am I doing with all this meat? He says, it ain't meat, Chief. Come into the kitchen. We go in the kitchen. He puts the box down. He opens it up and he said, this is the first week's take in the gas business. It was $320,000. Wow. Smelled like gasoline, right? Smelled up the whole house. I didn't care. But anyway, we took that germ of an idea and over an 8-year period of time, we grew that 320 into $7-8 million a week.
Wow.
So that's number one. And then during the course of that, the Russians were in Brooklyn. They had a small operation too. And I met up with them under some circumstances and I brought them into my operation and our business, almost doubled when I brought them in and they were my partners for several years. So it was 3 Russians actually that I was involved with. They were partners and then they became my partner.
Yeah. So was it common for, people in the Italian mob to work with other groups or, outside groups?
Well, it wasn't common. The only groups that I knew we worked with, I didn't know anybody. Well, I shouldn't say that. There was 1 or 2 other guys in our crew, our families, that were working with a couple of the Russians. They had different operations. And then we worked with an Irish group, the Westies. They were a pretty tough group, Irish kids, Irish guys, that they ran the docks in Manhattan. So we worked with them. Those are really the only 2 groups during my time that I recall working with.
Mm-hmm. We're talking with Michael Franzese. And Dante, go ahead. I know you have another question.
Yeah, so Michael, by you being a really big earner and the gas business being so successful, did you ever have any thoughts or aspirations to be a boss at any point?
I rose to the position of captain, capo regime, and, I never really, I wasn't looking to be the boss because that's a lot of work, number one. And number two, I was living a pretty good lifestyle. I was making a lot of money. I had a house in California, Florida, And I wouldn't want to be tied down with that responsibility. I had enough, just with my crew and all the things that I had going. However, my father would have wanted me to be the boss. If he could have, set me up, that would have been his plan, because he was, on parole because he had such a long sentence. When he came out, he couldn't really move around that much. So he would have wanted me to be the boss and take control of the family. Because if my dad didn't go to prison back in the 60s, he probably would have been the boss.
And speaking of your dad, there's something that I have seen that's been real fascinating to me, because I follow you on social media and watch your YouTube videos and stuff like that. And it's one thing that kind of stood out to me about both you and your father. It seems to me that both of you have always had good relationships with African Americans. Was that something, especially with your dad coming up in the time that he did, was that something that, he was always, was that something that was important to him? Was that just who he was? Or, where did that come about? Because it seems like you and your dad both always had, good relationships with African Americans.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. We always got along very well. Like Sammy Davis was a really good friend. We had friends in the record business, that were African Americans. We always got along. Quite honestly, I'll tell you a story. When I was in prison, I used to hang around with a lot of the African Americans. We played ball together, whenever I was out on the yard and they didn't lock me down. And I had a group of Italians in there. This guy, Pete Milano, who was the boss, alleged boss of the LA crew. And he called me one day and he said, Mike, I want to talk to you. He said, why are you hanging around with all of these black guys all the time? And I said, well, what do you mean by that? He said, well, you don't hang out with us that much. And I said, well, let me tell you this. First of all, I said, it was an Italian guy that put me in prison. That was an informant that turned against me, my partner. I said, so don't give me that nonsense. And number two, I don't like to do what you guys do. You guys sit around, you tell war games, you play cards. I said, I go out in the yard, we play ball with these guys. Why get along well? What's the difference? I said, and don't tell me how to do my time. We all do our own time. But the point is, for some reason, I have a lot of African-American friends. We've always got along well. I love, there was a lot of young African-Americans in prison that I really counseled and tried to keep them out of trouble. I appreciated the fact that when their moms came to visit them, that they loved their mom so much. I don't know. I mentioned this because it was something that was very touching to me at the time, and we just got along very well. So yeah, my dad too. I mean, people have said to me, as long as you say, why did the Mafia not like, blacks and African American? I said, where did you get that idea? You know where they got that idea from? The Godfather. When there was a statement there at the table when they said, put the drugs in the black neighborhoods and all of that. I said, you watch a movie and you think that that's, real life? I said, come on. So, look, honestly, prejudice and racism unfortunately exists in the world, and I don't know if it'll ever disappear, but it wasn't something that me and my dad and my family were part of.
Yeah. So, and that, that is something that is just real fascinating to me, because especially, back in that time, there could have been, even more backlash for being, friends with people who were black and stuff like that. So was that just something that you was just always raised with? Like, cause like I said, it appears your dad was like that too. Was that just, how it was in your family, or where did that come from?
We had, my dad had a partnership, and I had a long relationship with a fellow that, not managed, was the agent for a lot of the top African-American acts at the time, from Dionne Warwick to Marvin Gaye, Michael Jackson, you name it. And so we were around, a lot of those stars all the time, and we got along well. I mean, I knew Marvin fairly well. We got along good. Dionne Warwick was a friend. I guess that's how I was brought up. And my dad, he just liked people, and he didn't separate anything. I never heard him say a disparaging word, really, about anybody in any race. We had a lot of Jewish friends at the time, so I don't know, I guess we were brought up that way, and it's just the way we were.
All right. We're talking with Michael Franzese, and to kind of transition a little bit, I know you mentioned your relationship with celebrities and stuff like that, there is one topic that is of particular interest to my co-host, who's a huge boxing fan, and that is shadow boxing and stuff with Don King. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, there was an investigation on me back in the 80s where an FBI undercover agent and an informant that was around Muhammad Ali, they pulled him out of prison to put him on this operation. And basically, they targeted myself and Don King, and they were trying to establish a connection between the mob and pro boxing. 8-month investigation. They had, I don't know, 83 tape recordings on me. I did introduce them to Don. And the investigation never went anywhere. They couldn't indict us or charge us with anything. But, yeah, I mean, that's how it was back then. Al Sharpton got involved in the deal because he was working with us at the time. And he actually set up the meeting between Don and myself and the agents. But, when I brought the agents in to meet Don, I had a meeting with him first. And I said, Don, I've been around these guys for several months. I verified that they have the money because the FBI set up a bank account with $15 million in the account, to show that they had money. And I said, but I can only go back so far with them. So at this first meeting, don't say anything out of the way. Say everything straight. Tell them how to legitimately be in the business. Be a Boy Scout on this one. And he was, and it never went anywhere.
Now, the only person who did get into trouble as a result of that situation is Al Sharpton, correct?
That's correct. Because what happened was the undercover agent had said that he was a wealthy Colombian drug dealer at one time, and he wasn't involved in drugs anymore. And Al Sharpton, on his own, went up to the office that was videotaped and bugged and tried to make a drug deal with him on his own. So, wow. Yeah, he got in trouble for that, and Al will deny it, but he actually became an informant as a result of shadow boxing and his involvement.
Wow, wow, that's a big news item right there. Did he put anybody in jail as a result?
I cannot say that. I don't know that he did. I know he was definitely working with the FBI. It was a front page story in Newsday that he was, he had turned informant. But I don't know, if they successfully used any information that they got from him. I really don't know.
Okay. We're talking with Michael Franzese and Dante. Go ahead, sir.
All right. So, Michael, you were with the Columbos, and pretty famously, the Columbos have usually, like every 10, 15 years, they go to war. I was wondering, did outside families ever get involved or try to manipulate the Columbo wars, or did they kind of just remain neutral?
The other families normally remained neutral. Usually when there's, at least in modern day, in the last 50 or 60 years, whenever there's a war in the family, it's always a civil war, and it's a war for power. It's never a war among all the families. They don't fight among each other. So, a lot of times, the boss of another family might support one particular faction of the family, but that doesn't mean he's going to send men or, get involved in the war physically. He just may say, I support your position, and if you win, we'll support you. So, for instance, when John Gotti, took out Paul Castellano, that wasn't a popular move. And people were upset with him. The boss, Chin Giganti of the other family, he was pretty upset. My boss was pretty upset with John, because John didn't ask for permission. He just did it. And normally, you don't take out a boss without going to the commission and pleading your case or doing whatever it is you have to do. So, but normally the other families do not get involved. Physically, they don't get involved.
Mm-hmm. Robin, I know you have a question. Go right ahead.
Yes, I was wondering, what made you decide to leave the life of being in the Mafia?
Basically, I met a young woman. She's now my wife for 36 years, and I fell in love. And I didn't want to destroy her life, and I wanted to have a life with my family. And one of the things I can tell you about the mob life, I don't know any family of any member of that life that hasn't been totally devastated. Including my own, and not my wife and kids, but, my mother was 33 years without a husband with all the time my father did. My younger sister died of an overdose of drugs at the age of 27. My younger brother was a drug addict 25 years of his life. He contracted the HIV virus. He was a street kid. He became an informant. He testified against my father, went into the witness protection program. I had a younger sister that was, mentally unstable. She died young of cancer. At the end of my mom's life, her relationship with my father can only be described as ugly because she blamed him for everything that went wrong. And, rightfully so. She suffered a lot. So, and every family of every guy that I know, it's the same thing. There's destruction. So, if an organization can do that to a family, well, then there's something tremendously wrong. And I just didn't want to do that. I had met this young girl and I said, I'm going to meet her. I'm going to spend, some time with her. I'm going to go to jail for the rest of my life because I became a major target and it was only a matter of time. So I just made up my mind, this life is not conducive to a good home family life. I don't want to hurt anybody. I'm not mad at anybody. I'm not resentful. I just want out. And that's what really motivated my decision to leave.
Mm-hmm. And with making that decision to leave, obviously now you mentioned it a little earlier, that there are people that you mentor, you have ministry and stuff like that as well. Do you ever hear from current mob guys or guys who have recently left, who are trying to, kind of follow in your footsteps and leave the life too for their family or for their faith and stuff like that?
Not for that reason. I've had people contact me that are bitter and angry with the life and have walked away or they weren't made guys. They were associates. They were around, mm-hmm. which is a different category. But most of them are bitter and angry, and and I try to counsel them. I say, look, that's not going to do you any good. If you really want to transform your life, then you got to go in a different direction. Anger and resentment is not going to help you do that. So, but I haven't been contacted by too many of them. But I don't know that I've been able to help them that much. But, as far as gangbangers on the street and guys in prison, I've been doing that for the last 20 years. Mm-hmm. I think that, fortunately, I've been able to impact a lot of people's lives and try to get them in the right direction.
All right. We're talking with Michael Franzese. We have a few minutes left. And on that topic, obviously, there's so much fascination with the mob life and just, criminal life in general. And there's something that I saw you mentioned on one of your videos that I don't think a lot of people pay attention to. Most of us love mob movies and stuff like that. But what people don't notice is that for the most part, they all die in the end. They all either die in the end or go to jail. It doesn't end. The movie usually doesn't end happily ever after. So can you just talk a little bit about the fact that there's that life, the end of that life normally doesn't end well?
No, I mean, there's not too many, nice, neat stories wrapped up. Look, I'm very fortunate. I try to give you one example. In 1986, Fortune magazine wrote an article, 50 biggest and wealthiest mob bosses in the country. And it was a big article. It was half the magazine. They featured, I think, 6 or 7 of us. I was one of the 6. And they actually had a chart with the 50 of us on there, according to rank, wealth, power. I was number 18 on the list. And I was the youngest guy on the list. And I always say, don't ask me how they make a list like that. I mean, they didn't ask for our tax returns. It was ridiculous. It sold a lot of magazines, right? But, the telling thing about that list is, 30 some odd years later now, 47 of those men are dead. And 2 of them are still in prison. One is in his 90s, and the other one, I think, gets released in a year or 2, and he's in his late 70s. So the rest are all dead. So that's like 47 dead out of 50. Gives you an idea of the way that life ends normally. And many of them that died in prison.
Wow. So obviously, you have a tremendous life story. You sitting here right now is a miracle. How were you able to not suffer the fate that people normally suffer when they decide to walk away from that life?
Look, I look at it two ways. Number one, I think there's a spiritual reason. I mean, I'm a person of faith, and I think God had a different plan and purpose for my life. That's very obvious to me. I mean, I meet a young girl who has a devout mother. I got people praying for me forever, and I become a person of faith and go in a different direction. The other side of that is, one of the horrors of that life is that you make a mistake. Your best friend walks you into a room, you don't walk out again. And I experienced that through my time on the street. So what I said is, look, I'm moving out to California. It's one thing to walk a guy into a room. It's another thing to send a hit squad across the country, try to kill somebody that's aware of it, and then get away with it. You go away for life. So what do? I move out to California. I would have never lasted in New York. Impossible. Too many guys, and I was too well known. I move out to California. I change my entire lifestyle. What do I mean? Well, I don't create patterns in my life because I knew the mob intimately well. I knew what they would do and what they wouldn't do. So I don't walk my dog at 7:00 every morning. I don't go to the same restaurant every Tuesday or Wednesday night. I stay out of nightclubs. I know who's there. Bad place for me. I get recognized. Guy makes a phone call to New York. He wants to be a big shot. I walk out in a parking lot. Boom, I'm gone. So I avoided all the things that I knew that could be a problem for me. And I was very disciplined in that because I never sell my former associates short. They're capable people. And, in the end of the day, I just outlasted everybody. And when it became evident that I wasn't putting people in jail, I wasn't testifying, I wasn't on trials, I wasn't putting people in prison, I think at some point in time they said, hey, you know what? Let them alone. We got our own problems. That's it. And so I mean, I can't attribute it to anything else. I mean, that's what makes the most sense.
And so now, obviously, those who are still in the life now, like you said, it's pretty much like time gone by, and they're not even worried about it anymore. Like you said, they have other things to be concerned about. Is that the state of it right now?
Yeah, I mean, look, every once in a while, I'll get somebody contacted me on Facebook, Mike, I'm in New York, as a private message, and some guys were talking bad about you because you're all over YouTube, and there's rumblings every once in a while that I hear, which is expected. I get it. You're not allowed to walk away from that life. I did break my oath, and some people still resent that. I get it. I understand it, and I'm guilty of that. I did break my oath, but I don't think it's going to go any further. People have asked me, are you afraid? I don't live in fear. I can't live my life like that. But look, I'm a public figure in a way. I'm not a celebrity, but I am a public figure. I do speaking engagements where there's, 20,000 people in the audience. And I do a book signing where anybody wants to be a hero, they can come up to me and blow me away. It's like anybody else in that position. I don't think I have any more to be concerned about than something like that. Somebody wants to make a name or be a hero. I took out Franzese. I don't know, but I don't dwell on it, and I don't worry about it. I mean, look, I'm going to be 70 years old this year, so I've lived my life. I hope to have another 20, 30 years. My dad died at 103, so
Wow.
There's a good indication that, if nothing else happens, I might last a couple more years, and that's how I look at it.
Right. So as we close here, Dante, I know you have one more question. Go ahead, sir.
Well, that it kind of ties in because I know you said, I was watching one of your videos and you had to miss your father's funeral. Why was that? And also, was that kind of difficult for you not being able to make your dad's funeral?
Well, yeah, and the reason for that is, number one, I don't put myself in a situation where I shouldn't be. I mean, my dad's funeral was in Brooklyn, and I know there's guys around there. I didn't want to become the center of attention there. The fact that I was there, and if there was any rumblings of people talking in the neighborhood, and I was advised not to go. And I took that advice, and I got a wife and children that are always very concerned when I go back east, even though it's been a long time. But I visited my dad privately. I mean, I wasn't there to make a show or do anything like that. I paid my respects privately. But yeah, I would have liked to be at the funeral, and I felt bad about it. But I thought it was the right thing to do. And like I said, I paid my respects privately, and you know, it's some of the consequences you face when you make decisions like I made.
Mm-hmm. All right, let everybody know how to keep up with you on social media, the YouTube channel, where to get the book when the book comes out. I know you have other books out as well, all that good stuff.
Yeah, well, I'm all over social media. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I do, 2 YouTube videos a week now. We're posting just about. Going to have a podcast coming up soon. The book will be out over the summer. There's now a television series in development based upon my life that people should be hearing about in the next 2 or 3 months. They're going to be making announcements. So I got that. And then michaelfranzese.com. I do a lot of personal and business coaching, life skills, business coaching. We developed a platform for that during the pandemic, and we've got 12,000 people in our community right now that are doing nothing but, encouraging one another, getting a lot of content from me that helps them both in business and in life. I have, I'm doing personal coaching now, so I'm pretty well available. I'm out there. michaelfranzese.com, and then of course all the social media. I don't even know what my handles are, just put my name come up. I'm not great with the social media stuff, but you put my name there and it comes up. I like to be in touch. I'm a people person, so I enjoy socializing, and God has been good.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for coming on the show. We definitely appreciate it. This has been a pleasure. Thank you, sir.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you, and have a great rest of your day, and maybe we'll connect again one day.
Absolutely. Take care.
All right, guys. Take care.
Have a good one. Thank you.